Good morning and welcome to Musings on a Monday. My name is Trevor and I'm officiating minister at Fenton Church Nazarene. I'll just give a little reflection on Monday for the week, a little thought for the day, as it were, drawing upon something that's significant in a national occasion or an awareness day or something that's happened in history that I just kind of ponder and reflect on. Well, the obvious thing for me, of course, was thinking about the significance of yesterday, which was the 6th of June. And you may have watched the telly or seen the news or perhaps saw photographs or broadcasting. Or today, as you pick up Monday papers, you will see on front pages and other pages throughout various newspapers the events that were commemorated yesterday at Normandy. For it was 77 years ago on the 6th of June that the land invasion took place of the Allied forces combined in order to begin the liberation of Europe from Nazi oppression. And so every year it comes round, there are less and less veterans who are still alive to be able to tell their stories. But what was moving yesterday was to see that 100 veterans were able to travel, despite all of the COVID restrictions, over to the Normandy beaches and to give their tributes and stories. And you may have seen some of those on the news as they recall the acts of heroism and the acts of sacrifice and acts of courage that were shown and demonstrated, that self-sacrifice, paying an ultimate price that someone would give their life for the sake of their country or particularly for the sake of their comrades, which was a very important thing. And what was significant yesterday was there was the unveiling. For the first time, a memorial was set up for all of those who were killed, who were under the British command, particularly at Gold Beach, one of the 5 Normandy beaches. And you may have seen the ceremony there at Versailles, overlooking Gold Beach, where thousands of British and Allied soldiers who were under this control of the British command were killed. They reckon that although the numbers are very hard to gauge exactly, there was a list of 22,000 names on that memorial as they were inscribed sort of for a recognition of who they are and that they would not be forgotten and that their act of heroism and sacrifice would be acknowledged for generations to come. And the Prince of Wales also gave a broadcast that was on television yesterday, and he particularly drew attention to 2 things. One, that we don't forget, even as years pass, we don't forget the sacrifice that was made, and we don't forget the veterans who are still alive, nor their legacies and generations of family who are still affected by the events of D-Day 77 years ago yesterday. In his broadcast, he also commended 2 values that he felt were important for all of us to emulate in our lives, which are significantly demonstrated in the courage and bravery of the men who fought in the war and on those beaches. The 2 things he talked about was the importance of sacrifice, which is the ultimate gift that we can give to other people. And he wanted, of course, to remember the sacrifice in the light of the memorial that was opened yesterday by the French in honour of the British fallen. He also talked about the importance of courage as a value, that in the midst of adversity and difficulty, that we are able to find that resolve and strength despite all that is against us, to be able to persevere and do the things that are right and good and find that strength from inside and outside of ourselves that would help us to do the things that really matter, even though they're difficult. And so he said that these 2 particular values represented not only the landing of over 160,000 personnel on the day of June the 6th, 1944, but also represented their efforts and the efforts at home and in other places, which enabled freedom and liberation to take place for all of us. And so we do tell this story and we pass it on to our children. We pass it on to keep the story alive, that we don't forget those who gave their lives in order that we might live in a democracy and a life of freedom. Imperfect though that might be, we are liberated from tyranny and oppression. And to also think about cultivating in our own lives sacrifice and courage. And we may not give sacrifice in the way that is demanded, paying the ultimate price, but we can be sacrificial as we deny ourselves. We, as Jesus said, take up our own cross. We deny our own rights in order that others might also live. He said that actually the way to live is to give one's life away. And of course, Jesus knew himself what he was talking about. He says in John's gospel, when he was talking about loving others, that there's no greater love than giving your life for another. Of course, in the Christian story, we believe that's exactly what Jesus did. But even more remarkably, that he not only gave up his life for his friends, but actually fundamentally give up his life for his enemies, so that even those who hated God or hated his way were still given the invitation and offer to participate in his family. His love on a cruel cross also brought peace in a different way, spiritual peace, and peace by which all men and women from all nations and peoples through him might know belonging in the family of God and have peace with God. We also know that that also took courage as he went through the various things that were torturous to him, his horrendous death, his crucifixion, the barbaric nature of suffocation, and the horrendous abandonment of his friends, and the piercing of his body, the whipping, the flogging, the crown of thorns on his head, that the courage to face the cross was something that he could not do alone, and he did that with the help and strength of God. The ultimate sacrifice and the ultimate courage. And so these two things came together for me this weekend. And I hope that as I go forward in the day and continue to think about that, I'm thankful for those who gave their lives for me and for my freedom and liberty, that I also might in some way, as I look at my neighbour and think about ways in which I might deny my own self so that others may have the benefit or the blessings of my engagement in their life in some small, tangible way, that I'll think about others and put others first and give my life to serve others. And also I would do that with love and not just duty, but do it because there's something in our hearts that Jesus brings that enables us to love our neighbours as ourselves. And for courage, yeah, we need that too. Life can be difficult for so many people, and maybe in your own situation there are a lot of difficulties in your own life. But we pray for courage, that God would give us the strength, that despite our circumstances, we would press on into the things that make life better for others. And we summons that courage, not just from within and our friends around us, but also from the strength that God gives us. So I pray you have a good week as you reflect perhaps on the significant events of 1944 for another year, as you also are perhaps thankful, as you think about the significance of all that has taken place yesterday, and as you look at the papers today or the news stories that will appear, or even if you just walk past your local cenotaph, you'll stop and remember and pause again and be thankful for those who gave their life, for you and for our country and for others, that they might experience freedom. That we too, in some small way, might emulate, as Prince Charles says, the spirit of sacrificial love for others, and also the courage to do that in very difficult circumstances, so that we might be those who serve. And this too is the act and way of Christ. And for that, I also give thanks today.